The millionaire sheikh laughed at his brother, who only inherited a camel from his father. But 1 year after this event, everyone was left open-mouthed at the result. The scorching Nevada sun beat down mercilessly on the sprawling estate where the Ahmad family had gathered for the reading of Ibrahim Ahmad's will. The family patriarch, a respected figure in the sustainable agriculture community, had built his empire from scratch after immigrating to the United States decades ago. Now his two sons sat in the mahogany-paneled study, waiting to learn their father's final wishes. Karim Ahmad, the eldest at 38, sat with the confidence of someone who had never known failure. His tailored suit and carefully maintained appearance reflected his position as CEO of Ahmad Enterprises, the family's agricultural technology company. His fingers drummed impatiently on the leather armrest as he glanced at his younger brother. Tariq, 32, adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and smoothed down his modest button-down shirt. As a mathematics professor at the local university, he had always felt out of place in the world of high-stakes business that his father and brother inherited. Yet there was an underlying strength in his quiet demeanor, a resilience inherited from their father that few recognized. Mr. Harrison, the family lawyer who had served Ibrahim for over 2 decades, cleared his throat and began reading the will. To my eldest son, Karim, I leave 80% of Ahmad Enterprises, including our technological patents and agricultural properties across Nevada and Arizona. He paused as Karim's smile widened. Additionally, you will receive the main family estate and our vacation properties in California and Colorado. Karim nodded, as if receiving exactly what he had expected. The company alone was worth hundreds of millions, and the properties would add significantly to his already substantial personal wealth. To my younger son, Tariq, Mr. Harrison continued, his voice carrying a slight note of hesitation, I leave Solomon. A heavy silence fell over the room. Tariq blinked in confusion. Solomon? The camel? Solomon was their father's prized camel, a magnificent creature that Ibrahim had imported from Dubai years ago. While the animal was certainly impressive, it seemed an almost laughable inheritance compared to the fortune Karim had received. Karim's laugh broke the tension, though not in a way that brought comfort. A camel? Father left you a camel? His shoulders shook with barely contained amusement. Well, little brother, I suppose you could start giving rides at children's birthday parties. Mr. Harrison raised his hand, indicating he wasn't finished. There's more. Along with Solomon, Tariq will receive the deed to the experimental breeding facility on the outskirts of Las Vegas, consisting of 50 acres of land. He paused again, shuffling through his papers. Your father left a letter for each of you, to be opened 1 year from today. Tariq sat in stunned silence, his mind racing to make sense of it all. The breeding facility was where their father had conducted his mysterious research on sustainable desert agriculture and animal husbandry. While 50 acres might sound impressive to some, it was a fraction of the thousands of acres Karim had just inherited. As they left the lawyer's office, Tariq felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. Doctor. Sarah Martinez, his girlfriend of 2 years, had been waiting outside. Her warm brown eyes met his, filled with concern and support. As a veterinarian specializing in exotic animals, she had often worked with Ibrahim and had a special fondness for Solomon. How did it go, she asked, though the slight slump in Tariq's shoulders told her enough. Before Tariq could answer, Karim strode past them, phone already pressed to his ear. Yes, everything went as expected, he was saying to someone. We can proceed with the expansion plans immediately. Looking back at his brother, Karim called out, Don't worry, Tariq. If you need to sell Solomon, I'm sure we can find a zoo that's interested. Or better yet, I'll buy him from you. Let's say 50,000. That's generous for a single camel. Tariq felt his face flush with embarrassment and anger, but Sarah's presence kept him grounded. She squeezed his hand and whispered, Your father was a brilliant man, Tariq. He must have had a reason for this. As they walked to their car, Tariq couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this inheritance than met the eye. His father had always been methodical, strategic in everything he did. The experimental breeding facility had been off limits to everyone except Ibrahim himself for the past 5 years. Even Karim, with all his corporate authority, hadn't been allowed inside. Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts. Why don't we go see Solomon tomorrow? It's been a while since I've given him a checkup anyway. Tariq nodded. his mind already beginning to work in the way it did when he approached a complex mathematical problem. There were variables here he didn't yet understand, pieces of the puzzle that hadn't fallen into place. His father had taught him that every problem had a solution. You just had to look at it from the right angle. As they drove away from the lawyer's office, the Nevada sun setting behind them in a blaze of orange and purple, Tariq couldn't help but wonder what his father's true intentions were. The experimental facility, Solomon, the mysterious letters to be opened in a year. It all felt like the beginning of something, not the end his brother assumed it to be. The next morning, Tariq and Sarah drove out to the experimental breeding facility. The property sat about 30 miles outside Las Vegas, where the sprawling city gave way to vast desert landscape. As they approached the security gate, Tariq inserted the keycard Mr. Harrison had given him, watching as the heavy gates slowly opened for the first time since his father's passing. The facility wasn't what most people would expect. Instead of traditional barns or stables, they found a series of climate-controlled buildings integrated seamlessly into the desert landscape. Solar panels covered most of the roofs, and a sophisticated irrigation system fed what appeared to be experimental vegetation plants. Your father was always ahead of his time, Sarah remarked, taking in the facility's innovative design. As they parked, she noticed several monitoring stations with advanced equipment she recognized from her veterinary work. This is cutting-edge stuff, Tariq. Some of this technology isn't even available on the market yet. They found Solomon in a specially designed enclosure that was far more elaborate than a simple stable. The camel raised his head as they approached, his intelligent eyes fixing on them with what seemed like recognition. Solomon was unlike any camel Sarah had ever treated. His coat had an unusual sheen, and his physique was remarkably robust. There's something different about him, Sarah murmured, running her practiced hands along Solomon's neck. His genetic markers. I've never seen anything quite like this in a camel before. As they explored the facility, they discovered a state-of-the-art laboratory filled with research documents. Tariq began sifting through the papers, his mathematical mind quickly picking up patterns in the data. Sarah, look at this, he called out, spreading several documents across a desk. These are breeding charts, but they're unlike anything I've seen before. Father was using advanced genetic algorithms to track certain traits. Sarah leaned over his shoulder, her eyes widening as she read. These are revolutionary breeding techniques. He was developing a strain of camels that could not only survive in harsh conditions, but thrive while consuming minimal resources. And look at these sustainability metrics. They're off the charts. Their excitement was interrupted by the sound of approaching vehicles. Through the window, they saw several black SUVs pulling up to the facility. Karim stepped out of the first one, accompanied by a group of business-suited individuals. Our little brother, Karim called out as he entered the laboratory. I see you're already playing with your inheritance. Allow me to introduce Mr. Chen from Global Agricultural Ventures. They're interested in purchasing this property. The man beside Karim stepped forward, offering a practiced smile. Professor Ahmad, we're prepared to make a very generous offer for this facility. While the research here is interesting, we believe this land would be better suited for our industrial farming operation. Tariq felt his chest tighten. This facility isn't for sale. Karim's smile remained, but his eyes hardened. Be reasonable, Tariq. What are you going to do with it? Play scientist like father? This is prime real estate, and Global Ag's offer would set you up quite comfortably. Before Tariq could respond, Sarah spoke up. Actually, we have plans for this facility. She met Karim's surprised look with steady confidence. Your father's research here could revolutionize sustainable agriculture in arid regions, and we intend to continue it. Mr. Chen cleared his throat. Perhaps we should discuss numbers. I'm sure once you see our offer, the property isn't for sale, Tariq repeated, more firmly this time, at any price. After Karim and his entourage left, making thinly veiled suggestions that they would return with a better offer, Tariq and Sarah sat in the facility's small office, processing what had just happened. Did you mean what you said about having plans for this place? Tariq asked. Sarah smiled, reaching for his hand. I meant every word. Tariq, what your father was doing here, it's groundbreaking. These breeding techniques, combined with your mathematical expertise and my veterinary knowledge, we could create something extraordinary. Tariq looked around the facility with new eyes. The advanced equipment, the detailed research, Solomon's unusual characteristics. It was all starting to form a picture in his mind. His father hadn't given him a consolation prize. He'd given him an opportunity. We'll need funding, he mused, already calculating potential scenarios. And we'll have to learn more about what father was working on here. We'll figure it out, Sarah assured him. Besides, I think Solomon likes having us around. As if on cue, they heard a soft grunt from outside the window, where Solomon stood watching them with those strangely intelligent eyes. For the first time since the will reading, Tariq felt a spark of excitement about his inheritance. What they didn't notice was the small security camera in the corner of the office, its light blinking steadily as it recorded everything, part of a sophisticated monitoring system that seemed to be collecting far more data than would be necessary for a simple breeding facility. Over the next few weeks, Tariq and Sarah immersed themselves in understanding Ibrahim's research. The facility's complex documentation system revealed years of meticulous work that went far beyond simple camel breeding. Ibrahim had been developing a comprehensive system for sustainable desert agriculture, with Solomon at its center. Sarah spent countless hours analyzing Solomon's unique characteristics. His digestive system is remarkably efficient, she explained one evening, reviewing her latest findings. And these blood tests show unusual adaptations that allow him to process nutrients from desert plants most camels couldn't digest. Tariq, meanwhile, had converted one of the facility's offices into a makeshift study, its walls covered with papers and charts. His mathematical background proved invaluable as he decoded his father's complex breeding algorithms. "It's brilliant," he muttered, barely looking up when Sarah brought him coffee. Father wasn't just breeding camels. He was developing a whole new approach to desert agriculture. Their breakthrough came when they discovered that Solomon's manure had unique properties. The combination of his specialized diet and enhanced digestive system produced natural fertilizer that could significantly improve desert soil quality. It was a discovery that could transform agricultural practices in arid regions. However, their excitement was tempered by practical challenges. The facility's operational costs were mounting, and their savings were dwindling. Traditional banks were skeptical of their unusual business plan, and potential investors seemed more interested in buying the property than funding their research. One afternoon, while Tariq was working through another set of calculations, he received an unexpected visit from Ahmad Enterprises' chief financial officer, David Reynolds. The man had worked with Ibrahim for years and had always been kind to Tariq. "Your brother asked me to bring you these documents," David said, placing a folder on Tariq's desk. "It's another offer from Global Agricultural Ventures, substantially higher than the last one." Tariq began to refuse, but David held up his hand. "Before you say no, there's something else." He glanced around conspiratorially before continuing. "I've been reviewing your father's financial records. There are some irregularities, large transfers to numbered accounts, investments in research facilities across the Southwest. It's as if he was preparing for something big." This piqued Tariq's interest. "What kind of something?" "I'm not sure," David admitted. "But whatever it was, it centered around this facility in Solomon. Your father was convinced this place would change everything. He told me once that sometimes the smallest seed can grow into the largest tree." After David left, Tariq shared the conversation with Sarah. She was examining Solomon's latest blood work results, her forehead creased in concentration. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the screen. "Solomon's genetic markers, they're stable. Do you understand what this means?" Tariq shook his head, and Sarah's eyes lit up with excitement. "It means his traits are heritable. We could breed more camels like him, create a whole herd with these enhanced capabilities." Their discussion was interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor. Dr. Amira Hassan, a renowned agricultural scientist from the University of Arizona, stood in their doorway. "Professor Ahmad, I hope I'm not interrupting. Hey, I worked with your father on several projects, and when I heard about his passing, I wanted to see how his research was progressing." Dr. Hassan's expertise proved invaluable. She spent hours reviewing their findings, asking precise questions, and sharing insights from her own research. "What you have here," she said finally, "is revolutionary, but you'll need help to develop it properly." She pulled out her business card. "I have connections with several environmental research foundations. They're always looking for sustainable agriculture initiatives to fund. With your father's research and your new discoveries, I believe we could secure substantial grants. As the sun set over the desert facility, casting long shadows across the experimental plots, Tariq felt a renewed sense of purpose. His father's words, relayed by David, echoed in his mind. The smallest seed can grow into the largest tree. That evening, as they were preparing to leave, Sarah made another discovery. Hidden behind some old files, she found a sealed envelope with Tariq's name on it, written in his father's distinctive handwriting. It wasn't the letter meant to be opened in a year. This was something different. "Should we open it?" Sarah asked, holding the envelope carefully. Tariq stared at his father's handwriting, remembering how Ibrahim had always taught him that timing was everything. "Not yet," he decided. "Father had his reasons for everything. We need to understand more before we start uncovering all his secrets." As they drove home under the stars, Solomon watched from his enclosure, his unusual eyes reflecting the facility's lights. In the distance, the Las Vegas skyline glittered like a mirage, a reminder of the stark contrast between their small, sustainable operation and the corporate world that sought to absorb it. While Tariq and Sarah worked to develop their sustainable agriculture project, Karim was facing his own challenges at Ahmad Enterprises. The company's board of directors was pushing for aggressive expansion, and Global Agricultural Ventures' interest in the experimental facility had evolved into a proposed merger. "Think about it, Karim," said Jennifer Woods, the lead counsel for Global Ag, during a meeting in his plush office overlooking the Las Vegas Strip. "With our resources and your company's market presence, we could dominate agricultural development across the Southwest." Karim leaned back in his leather chair, considering the proposal. The merger would significantly increase his personal wealth, but something about it felt wrong. "What about my brother's facility?" Jennifer's smile remained professional. "That's a key part of the deal. Our analysts believe the land alone is worth millions, and the location is perfect for our new industrial farming complex." Later that day, Karim decided to visit the facility himself. As he drove through the desert, memories of his father surfaced. Ibrahim had always emphasized the importance of legacy, of building something that would last beyond one's own lifetime. But what exactly was that legacy supposed to be? Arriving at the facility, Karim was surprised by the changes. The once quiet research station was now bustling with activity. University students were working in the experimental plots, and he recognized several respected scientists among them. Dr. Hassan was explaining something to a group near the main building, gesturing enthusiastically. Inside, he found Tariq in the laboratory, surrounded by complex equations and biological data. Sarah was working nearby, analyzing samples through a sophisticated microscope. Neither noticed him immediately, and Karim took a moment to observe his brother in this new element. "Impressive operation you've got here," Karim said finally, causing both to look up in surprise. "Dr. Hassan's involvement has raised quite a few eyebrows in the agricultural community." Tariq straightened, immediately defensive. "If you're here about the global ag offer—" "I'm not," Karim interrupted, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture. "I came to understand. Show me what you're working on." Over the next hour, Tariq and Sarah explained their discoveries. Karim found himself genuinely intrigued by the potential implications of their research. The sustainable farming methods they were developing could revolutionize agriculture in arid regions. "There's something else," Sarah added, leading them to Solomon's enclosure. "Watch this." She demonstrated how Solomon's unique capabilities were being used to improve soil quality and support desert plant growth. The results were undeniable. Areas treated with their new methods showed remarkable improvement in crop yield and sustainability. As they talked, Karim noticed something else. His brother had changed. The quiet, reserved mathematics professor had found his passion, and it showed in every explanation, every demonstration. This was no longer just about proving himself. This was about continuing their father's vision in a way Karim hadn't considered. Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent call from David Reynolds. "Karim, you need to see this," the CFO said, his voice tense. "I've been analyzing those financial irregularities I mentioned to your brother. There's a pattern emerging, and it's connected to several other research facilities across the Southwest. Your father was building something bigger than any of us realized." Before Karim could respond, they heard the sound of approaching vehicles. Through the window, they saw several black SUVs entering the property, led by Jennifer Woods herself. "What is she doing here?" Tariq demanded, turning to his brother. Karim shook his head, equally confused. "This isn't authorized. I specifically said no site visits without proper clearance." Jennifer strode into the facility, flanked by security personnel and legal representatives. "Mr. Ahmad," she addressed Karim, barely acknowledging Tariq and Sarah. "We've discovered some concerning information about this facility's permits and environmental compliance. We'll need to conduct a thorough inspection immediately." Sarah stepped forward, clutching a folder of documents. "All our permits are in order. We've exceeded environmental compliance standards in every category. Nevertheless," Jennifer continued smoothly, "as potential stakeholders in Ahmad Enterprises, we have the right to examine any property that might affect our interests." Karim felt a moment of clarity. This wasn't about permits or compliance. It was about finding a way to force the sale of the facility. He looked at his brother, remembering their father's frequent lessons about the true meaning of success. In that moment, standing in the facility their father had built, watching his brother defend their family's legacy, Karim made a decision that would change everything. But before he could speak, one of the security guards called out in alarm. Solomon had somehow opened his enclosure and was approaching the group. Instead of the aggressive behavior the security team clearly feared, the Camel moved with deliberate grace, stopping directly between the two groups of people. His unusual eyes seemed to assess the situation with an almost human intelligence. The tension in the air was broken by an unexpected beeping from the facility's main computer. Multiple screens lit up simultaneously, displaying data that made Sarah gasp, and Tariq rushed to the nearest monitor. Whatever they were seeing would force everyone in that room to re-evaluate everything they thought they knew about Ibrahim Ahmad's legacy. The computer screens throughout the facility flickered with data, revealing a hidden network that Ibrahim Ahmad had carefully constructed over the years. As Tariq and Sarah analyzed the information, their eyes widened with understanding. What they had thought was just a single breeding facility was actually the hub of an intricate web of sustainable agriculture research centers across the American Southwest. "This is incredible," Dr. Hassan breathed, scanning the data. Ibrahim wasn't just breeding enhanced camels, he was developing an entire ecosystem. Look at these satellite facilities: Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, all working on different aspects of desert agriculture. The computer had activated due to a preset trigger in Ibrahim's system, releasing information about a network of researchers, scientists, and environmental specialists who had been working independently on various pieces of a greater puzzle. Solomon wasn't just a special camel. He was the first successful prototype of a comprehensive desert rehabilitation program. Jennifer Woods stepped forward, her professional demeanor slipping slightly as she realized the implications. "This changes everything. Global Ag needs to acquire this technology immediately. The applications for industrial farming. That's not what this is for," Karim interrupted, surprising everyone. He had been quietly reading through the documents on the main screen, his expression growing more thoughtful with each passing moment. "Our father wasn't trying to build another industrial agriculture empire. This is something entirely different." Sarah pulled up another file, this one containing Ibrahim's personal notes. "Look at this. He was developing a sustainable model that could be replicated in desert communities around the world. These enhanced camels aren't meant for mass production. They're meant to help restore damaged ecosystems and support small-scale sustainable farming." As the group absorbed this information, Solomon remained in the center of the room, watching the proceedings with those strangely intelligent eyes. Dr. Hassan approached him slowly, examining him with new understanding. The genetic modifications weren't just about efficiency, she realized. They were about adaptation and harmony with the desert environment. Ibrahim found a way to enhance natural capabilities without compromising the animal's essential nature. Tariq discovered a video file in the system, dated just months before his father's passing. With trembling hands, he opened it, and Ibrahim's face appeared on the main screen. The entire room fell silent. "My sons," Ibrahim's recorded image began, "if you're seeing this, then the system has detected that both of you are present at the facility together. I had hoped to share all of this with you personally, but time doesn't always follow our plans. What you found here isn't just a business or a research project, it's a vision for the future." The video continued as Ibrahim explained his years of work, the network of dedicated scientists and environmentalists he had assembled, and his hope that his sons would eventually understand the true value of his legacy. He spoke of how he had watched both of them grow, seeing in each the qualities needed to make this vision a reality. Karim's business acumen and leadership, combined with Tariq's analytical mind and genuine concern for sustainability. The division of inheritance wasn't a test or a punishment, Ibrahim explained, his eyes twinkling with familiar warmth. It was a key to unlock something greater than individual wealth or success. Sometimes, the most valuable inheritance isn't what we own, but what we choose to do with what we're given. As the video ended, Jennifer Woods cleared her throat. This is all very touching, but the fact remains that Global Ag has a vested interest in... No, Karim said firmly, straightening his shoulders. This facility and its research are not for sale. In fact, he turned to his brother. I think it's time we discussed how Ahmad Enterprises can support this project properly. The security team shifted uncomfortably as Jennifer's face hardened. The board won't be happy about this, Karim. This could affect the entire merger. Then perhaps it's time to reconsider the merger, Karim replied, his voice carrying the same quiet authority their father had often used. Some things are more important than corporate expansion. As the Global Ag representatives reluctantly departed, Dr. Hassan began making calls to her network of environmental scientists. The facility was quickly becoming a hub of activity as the true scope of Ibrahim's vision began to take shape. Tariq found Sarah standing near Solomon's enclosure, watching the sunset paint the desert in brilliant shades of orange and purple. Did you know? He asked softly. Did you suspect any of this? She smiled, reaching for his hand. I knew your father was brilliant, but this is beyond anything I imagined. He wasn't just thinking about the next quarter or the next year. He was thinking about the next generation. The facility's automated systems hummed in the background, processing data from the satellite research centers, while the desert wind carried the promise of change across the landscape Ibrahim had worked so hard to protect and nurture. In the days following the revelation of Ibrahim's master plan, the experimental facility transformed into a bustling center of scientific collaboration. Researchers from the satellite facilities began arriving, eager to share their pieces of the puzzle and work together on implementing Ibrahim's vision. Karim threw himself into understanding every aspect of the project, spending long hours with Tariq, reviewing the research and financial structures their father had put in place. The brothers found themselves working together for the first time in years, each bringing their unique strengths to the table. Look at these projections, Karim said one evening, spreading financial charts across the conference room table. Father had everything planned out. The initial funding is secured through a network of environmental trusts and sustainable development grants. All we need to do is coordinate the implementation, Tariq nodded, adding his own calculations to the mix. The mathematical models show that with proper implementation, this system could help rehabilitate thousands of acres of desert land within 5 years, and that's just the beginning. Sarah and Dr. Hassan worked tirelessly with Solomon, documenting his unique characteristics and developing protocols for breeding programs that would maintain the delicate balance Ibrahim had achieved. The camel's exceptional traits were proving to be just one part of a larger ecosystem restoration strategy. It's like your father created a living key, Dr. Hassan explained during a presentation to potential partners. These enhanced camels can unlock the desert's potential without disrupting its natural balance. Combined with our sustainable farming techniques, we could revolutionize how we approach agriculture in arid regions. The project attracted attention from environmental organizations and sustainable agriculture advocates worldwide. However, it also drew scrutiny from industrial agricultural companies who saw it as a threat to their traditional farming methods. One afternoon, as Tariq was reviewing data from the Arizona Research Station, he received an urgent message from David Reynolds. The CFO had discovered additional documents in Ibrahim's personal files, documents that would need to be addressed immediately. Your father left specific instructions about the company's structure, David explained when he arrived at the facility. According to these papers, once both brothers demonstrated their commitment to the project, a second phase of the inheritance plan would be triggered. The documents revealed that Ibrahim had created a unique corporate structure that would unite Ahmad Enterprises with the Sustainable Agriculture Project. The arrangement would ensure that the company's resources would support the environmental initiative while maintaining its profitability through sustainable practices. He really did think of everything, Karim mused, reading through the papers. This isn't just about camels or farming. It's about changing how businesses approach environmental responsibility. Sarah, who had been monitoring Solomon's latest genetic tests, called everyone to the laboratory. "We found something extraordinary," he announced, pulling up complex genetic data on the screens. Solomon's DNA contains markers that suggest his enhanced traits can adapt to different desert environments. It's as if your father found a way to create a perfectly balanced combination of innovation and natural evolution. As the implications of this discovery sank in, Karim turned to his brother. "You know, when father first told me about his dreams for sustainable agriculture, I thought he was being idealistic. I couldn't see past the bottom line, but now you see what he saw," Tariq finished. "A way to make a profit while making a difference." The facility's automatic lights activated as the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the research stations and experimental plots. Outside, Solomon stood in his enclosure, surrounded by the first generation of specially bred camels that would carry on his legacy. Dr. Hassan approached the brothers with a satellite phone in hand. "We've just received confirmation from the New Mexico station. The preliminary trials using our sustainable farming methods have shown remarkable results. They're ready to begin large-scale implementation whenever we give the word." Karim and Tariq exchanged glances, years of misunderstanding and competition melting away in the face of their shared purpose. Their father had given them more than just an inheritance. He had given them a chance to prove that success could be measured in more than just dollars and cents. As the desert stars began to appear in the darkening sky, the facility hummed with activity and possibility. The Ahmad brothers' story was no longer about division and rivalry, but about how two different paths could lead to the same destination. Their father's dream of sustainable desert agriculture was becoming a reality, one that would impact generations to come. The Ahmad brothers' Sustainable Agriculture Project was gaining momentum, but with growth came new challenges. As word spread about their innovative approach to desert farming, the facility became the center of both acclaim and controversy. One morning, Tariq arrived at the facility to find a group of local farmers gathered outside the gates. Their spokesman, Jack Henderson, a weathered man who had worked the Nevada soil for over 4 decades, stepped forward. "Professor Ahmad," Jack called out, his voice carrying years of experience and concern. "We've been hearing about what you're doing here. Some say it's the future of farming. Others say it'll put family farms out of business. We need to know where we stand." This unexpected confrontation led to an impromptu town hall meeting in the facility's main conference room. Farmers, ranchers, and local business owners filled the space, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Sarah and Dr. Hassan presented their research, explaining how the sustainable farming methods could benefit small-scale operations. "This isn't about replacing traditional farming," Sarah emphasized. "It's about giving farmers new tools to work with the desert, not against it." Karim, watching from the back of the room, saw an opportunity. He stepped forward, addressing the crowd with the confidence he usually reserved for board meetings. "What if we created a partnership program? Local farmers could be the first to implement these methods, with support and training from our research team." The tension in the room began to shift as the farmers realized this wasn't another corporate takeover, but a chance to be part of something revolutionary. Jack Henderson stroked his chin thoughtfully. "You're saying we could use these methods on our own land?" "Exactly," Tariq replied, pulling up simulation data. "Our mathematical models show that even small implementations could increase yield while reducing water usage by up to 40%. As the meeting continued, Dr. Hassan received an urgent call from the Arizona research station. They had encountered an unexpected problem with their breeding program. Some of the second-generation camels were showing signs of genetic instability. In the facility's laboratory, Sarah worked late into the night, analyzing genetic samples. "There's something we're missing," she muttered, comparing data sets. "The traits are stable in Solomon, but the transmission to offspring is more complex than we thought." The solution came from an unlikely source. One of the local farmers, Maria Rodriguez, approached them with observations about native desert plants on her family's property. These plants, she explained, showing them photographs, they've adapted to the harsh conditions over generations, but they do it gradually, working with the existing ecosystem. This insight led to a breakthrough. The team realized they needed to modify their breeding program to work more closely with natural adaptation processes. Solomon's unique genetics weren't meant to be replicated exactly, but rather to guide and enhance natural desert-adapted traits. Meanwhile, Karim was dealing with pressure from Ahmad Enterprises' board of directors. The company's pivot towards sustainable agriculture had caused some shareholders to question the new direction. During a tense board meeting, he stood his ground. "Our father built this company with a vision beyond quarterly profits," he declared. "The future of agriculture isn't in forcing nature to bend to our will. It's in finding ways to work with natural systems. And that's exactly what we're doing." The board's skepticism began to waver when David Reynolds presented the latest financial projections. The partnership program with local farmers was already showing promising results, and interest from international agricultural organizations was growing. Back at the facility, Tariq discovered something in his father's research notes that they had overlooked. Ibrahim had documented similar challenges with genetic stability in his early work, but he had found a solution by studying the desert's natural adaptation cycles. "Look at this," Tariq called to Sarah, pointing to a series of equations. Father wasn't trying to create a perfect specimen all at once. He was developing a system that could evolve and improve over time, just like natural selection, but guided by scientific understanding. As the sun set over the facility, the team gathered to discuss their next steps. The integration of traditional farming wisdom with their innovative methods was creating something none of them had expected, a true community of knowledge and cooperation. Solomon watched from his enclosure as Maria Rodriguez showed Dr. Hassan how certain desert plants responded to different soil treatments. The camel's intelligent eyes seemed to reflect the growing understanding that their project was about more than just scientific advancement. It was about finding harmony between innovation and tradition. In his office, Karim found an old photograph of their father standing in this same facility years ago, his smile suggesting he knew something that others hadn't yet discovered. Now, finally, his sons were beginning to understand the full scope of his vision, not just for sustainable agriculture, but for sustainable communities. The partnership between the Ahmad facility and local farmers was transforming the agricultural landscape of Nevada. What had started as a controversial research project was becoming a model for community-based, sustainable farming. One morning, as Tariq reviewed the latest data from their partner farms, he noticed an unexpected pattern. The soil improvement wasn't just affecting the designated farming areas, it was gradually enhancing the surrounding desert ecosystem as well. "The changes are spreading beyond our test plots," he explained to Dr. Hassan and Sarah, pointing to satellite imagery. "Look at the vegetation patterns here and here. The desert itself is responding to our methods." Sarah had been observing similar effects in their camel breeding program. The second-generation camels, now stabilized thanks to their revised approach, were showing even better adaptation to local conditions than expected. "It's like they're becoming part of the desert's natural system," she noted, rather than just surviving in them. The facility received an unexpected visit from Dr. James Chen, a former skeptic who had once advocated for global agricultural ventures takeover attempt. He arrived unannounced, asking to tour the operation. "I've been following your progress," he admitted as Karim showed him around. "What you're doing here, it's not what I expected. This isn't just sustainable agriculture, it's regenerative agriculture." Dr. Chen's visit coincided with a gathering of partner farmers who were sharing their experiences and knowledge. Maria Rodriguez was demonstrating how she had modified the facility's methods to work with her family's traditional farming practices. "We've been farming this land for 3 generations," she explained to the group, "but I've never seen it respond like this. The soil is coming alive again." Jack Henderson, once their biggest skeptic, now stood proudly next to his test plots. "My water usage is down by half," he reported, "and my yields are better than ever. But more than that, I'm farming in harmony with the land, not fighting against it." The success stories were drawing attention from unexpected quarters. Environmental organizations, indigenous rights groups, and even international development agencies were reaching out to learn more about their methods. Karim received a call from a representative of the United Nations Environmental Program. They were interested in studying the Ahmad model as a potential solution for addressing desertification in vulnerable regions around the world. As the implications of their work expanded, Tariq found himself returning to the sealed envelope they had discovered weeks ago. The time felt right to open it. Inside, they found a handwritten letter from their father, along with a small key. "My dear sons," the letter began, "if you're reading this, then you've begun to understand that true success isn't measured by what we take from the earth, but by what we give back to it. The key enclosed will open a safe in my old office, one that contains documents that will help you take this project to the next level." In Ibrahim's office, they found the safe hidden behind a painting of the desert landscape. Inside were detailed plans for expanding the project globally, along with connections to a network of environmental scientists and sustainable agriculture experts around the world. "He really did think of everything," Karim mused, reading through the documents. "This isn't just about saving one piece of desert. It's about showing the world a new way forward." The facility's success was having unexpected benefits for the local community as well. The partnership program had created new jobs, and the improved agricultural conditions were attracting other sustainable businesses to the area. Sarah found Tariq in the research lab late one evening, surrounded by his father's notes and current data. "You know," she said softly, "your father would be proud of both of you. You've taken his vision and made it even better." Outside, Solomon stood under the desert stars, surrounded by his growing family of enhanced camels. The desert wind carried the scent of blooming vegetation, a sign that the landscape was slowly but surely being transformed. Dr. Hassan, reviewing the latest environmental impact reports, summed it up best. "What's happening here isn't just about agricultural innovation or desert rehabilitation. It's about showing that when we work with nature instead of against it, the possibilities are endless." The Ahmad Brothers project was proving that success in business didn't have to come at the expense of the environment. Their father's legacy was growing into something far greater than anyone had imagined, a blueprint for sustainable development that could benefit generations to come. Nearly 6 months had passed since the Ahmad brothers discovered their father's true legacy, and the project had grown beyond their initial expectations. The facility had become a hub for sustainable agriculture research, drawing visitors from around the world. One morning, Tariq arrived to find a delegation from the Middle East touring the grounds. Among them was Sheikh Hassan al-Rashid, a prominent environmental advocate and old friend of their father. "Ibrahim and I spoke often about this project," the Sheikh explained, watching Solomon interact with the newer generation of camels. He believed that what worked here could work anywhere, but he was waiting for the right moment and the right people to bring it all together. The Sheikh's visit coincided with a major milestone in their research. Sarah and Dr. Hassan had successfully documented the full genetic profile of Solomon's line, creating a comprehensive guide for sustainable desert breeding programs. "The fascinating thing," Sarah explained during her presentation to the delegation, "is how the enhanced traits work with local ecosystems. We're not creating super animals, we're facilitating natural adaptation processes." Karim, meanwhile, had been working on transforming Ahmad Enterprises' business model. The company was now focusing on developing sustainable agricultural technologies that could be implemented by small-scale farmers worldwide. "Our father always said that true prosperity comes from lifting others up," Karim told the board during their quarterly meeting. "Our new initiatives have not only increased our profitability, but have also created sustainable opportunities for farming communities across 3 continents." The success was attracting attention from unexpected quarters. Universities were requesting research partnerships, and environmental organizations were studying their methods for use in other arid regions. During a community meeting at the facility, Maria Rodriguez shared how the project had transformed her family's farm. "We're not just growing more food," she said, her voice full of emotion. "We're growing hope. My children can see a future in farming now." Jack Henderson, standing next to his thriving test plots, nodded in agreement. "When I first heard about this project, I thought it was just another corporate scheme. Now I'm teaching my grandchildren about sustainable farming. That's a legacy worth having." The facility's monitoring systems were showing unprecedented results. The regenerative effects of their farming methods were spreading naturally through the desert ecosystem, creating patches of revitalized land that expanded with each season. Dr. Hassan's network of research stations was reporting similar success stories. From Arizona to Texas, the combination of enhanced camels and sustainable farming techniques was transforming previously barren areas into productive agricultural land. Late one evening, as Tariq and Sarah were reviewing data from the satellite facilities, they made an extraordinary discovery. The genetic markers they had been tracking in Solomon's line were showing signs of natural adaptation to each specific location. "Look at this," Sarah said excitedly, pointing to the screen. "The camels in each region are developing slightly different traits, all while maintaining the core enhancements your father developed." It's exactly what he predicted would happen. The revelation led to a breakthrough in their understanding of Ibrahim's work. He hadn't just created a single solution, he had developed a framework that could evolve and adapt to different environments and challenges. Sheikh al-Rashid, observing their progress, shared a memory of Ibrahim. "Your father once told me that the desert holds secrets that could save our world. But he said the key was not in conquering the desert, but in learning to dance with it." As the sun set over the facility, casting long shadows across the thriving experimental plots, the Ahmad brothers stood with their growing team, watching Solomon and his descendants graze peacefully on the desert vegetation they had helped nurture. The project was no longer just about proving their father right or healing the rift between brothers. It had become a living testament to the possibility of finding harmony between human innovation and natural wisdom, between profit and preservation, between progress and tradition. And somewhere, in the gentle desert wind that carried the scent of blooming vegetation, they could feel their father's presence, guiding them toward an even greater purpose that was just beginning to unfold. As the one-year anniversary of Ibrahim's will reading approached, the Ahmad facility had become a symbol of hope for sustainable agriculture worldwide. The success of their project had inspired similar initiatives across the globe, creating a network of regenerative farming communities. One morning, Mr. Harrison arrived at the facility carrying the letters their father had left to be opened after a year. The brothers gathered in their father's old office, now filled with both memories and new possibilities. "Before you open these, Mr. Harrison said, you should know that your father was incredibly proud of both of you. He told me once that his greatest achievement wasn't his business success, but raising sons who could see beyond the surface of things." With trembling hands, Tariq opened his letter first. Inside, he found a detailed map of underground water systems throughout the southwest, along with notes about ancient farming techniques that had once made the desert bloom. Karim's letter contained philosophical insights about business and environmental stewardship, along with suggestions for expanding the project's impact through education and community involvement. But it was the third letter, addressed to both brothers, that brought everything full circle. "My beloved sons," Ibrahim had written, "by now you have discovered that true wealth isn't measured in dollars or acres, but in the positive change we create in the world." The letter went on to reveal that Ibrahim had established a foundation set to activate on this day, dedicated to spreading sustainable agriculture practices to arid regions worldwide. The foundation would be funded by a percentage of Ahmad Enterprises' profits, ensuring that the company's success would directly support environmental restoration. Sarah burst into the office, excitement evident in her voice. "You need to see this," she exclaimed, leading them to the experimental plots. The latest soil samples had revealed something extraordinary. Their enhanced farming methods were not only improving agricultural yield, but were actually reversing desertification at an unprecedented rate. Dr. Hassan, analyzing the data, could barely contain her enthusiasm. "This goes beyond sustainable agriculture," she explained. "We're actually helping the desert heal itself." The implications for fighting climate change are enormous. The facility hosted a celebration that evening, bringing together local farmers, international researchers, and community members. Under the stars, surrounded by the thriving desert landscape they had helped restore, the Ahmad brothers shared their vision for the future. "Our father gave us more than an inheritance," Karim addressed the crowd. "He gave us a mission, and with your help, we're just getting started. Maria Rodriguez stood with her children, pointing to the healthy crops growing in what had once been barren soil. "This is what hope looks like," she said softly. "This is what happens when we work with nature instead of against it." Jack Henderson, now a vocal advocate for sustainable farming, raised his glass in a toast. "To Ibrahim Ahmad," he called out, "who saw the future in a single camel, and to his sons, who helped us all see it too." Solomon watched the proceedings from his enclosure, his intelligent eyes reflecting the lights of the celebration. His descendants, now spread across various research stations, were helping to transform desert communities throughout the American Southwest and beyond. As the evening wore on, Tariq found Sarah near their first experimental plot, now lush with desert-adapted vegetation. "You know what I've realized," he said, taking her hand. "Father didn't just leave us a legacy, he left us a beginning." Looking out over the transformed landscape, where patches of green now dotted what had once been barren earth, the brothers could see their father's dream taking root and growing into something even greater than they had imagined. The Ahmad facility had become more than a research station or a successful business venture. It was a living laboratory for the future of agriculture, a testament to the power of combining innovation with respect for natural systems, and a reminder that the greatest inheritances are not things we possess, but the positive changes we help create in the world. As the desert stars twinkled overhead, the gentle wind carried the promise of renewal across the land, whispering ancient secrets about harmony between human ingenuity and natural wisdom. Secrets that Ibrahim Ahmad had understood and that his sons were now sharing with the world. 1 year and 6 months after the reading of Ibrahim Ahmad's will, the experimental facility had evolved into the Ahmad Institute for Sustainable Desert Agriculture. The once controversial inheritance of a single camel had sparked a revolution in sustainable farming practices that was spreading across arid regions worldwide. Early one morning, as the sun painted the desert sky in shades of pink and gold, Tariq stood with Sarah at the edge of their expanded property. The original 50 acres had grown to over 500, with partner farms extending the reach of their sustainable methods even further. "Remember when we thought this was just about breeding better camels?" Sarah mused, watching a group of students from their newly established training program conducting soil analysis. The institute now hosted agricultural students from around the world, sharing knowledge that combined traditional wisdom with cutting-edge science. Karim arrived for their monthly strategic meeting, but this time he brought unexpected news. The United Nations Environmental Programme wants to establish our model as a global standard for desert rehabilitation, he announced, spreading the proposal across the conference table. They're offering full backing to implement our methods in drought-affected regions across 5 continents. Dr. Hassan, who had become the Institute's Director of Research, shared her own exciting update. "The genetic stability we achieved with Solomon's line has proven reproducible in other species. We're seeing similar success with desert-adapted goats and sheep. The possibilities for sustainable livestock farming are expanding exponentially." The facility's success had transformed the surrounding community. What had once been a sparse desert region was now a thriving agricultural hub. Maria Rodriguez had been appointed as the Institute's Director of Community Integration, helping other farming families adopt and adapt to sustainable methods. "It's not just about the farming techniques," Maria explained to a group of visiting agricultural ministers. "It's about reconnecting with the land, understanding its rhythms, and working with nature instead of against it." Jack Henderson, now running the Institute's Farmer Mentorship Program, had become an unexpected champion of their cause. "When I first met these boys," he told his students, "I thought they were crazy. Now I realize they were just ahead of their time, just like their father was." Solomon, now regarded as the patriarch of their enhanced camel program, had sired several generations of offspring. Each generation showed remarkable adaptation to local conditions, while maintaining the beneficial traits Ibrahim had carefully developed. The camel's enclosure had been expanded into a research preserve, where scientists studied the intricate relationships between the animals and the desert ecosystem. As Tariq reviewed the latest data from their satellite facilities, he discovered something remarkable. The areas where they had implemented their sustainable farming methods were showing signs of improved rainfall patterns. The regenerated soil was actually influencing local weather systems, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of environmental improvement. Sarah, who had been monitoring the genetic developments across their network, confirmed that the enhanced traits were evolving in exactly the way Ibrahim had predicted. Your father wasn't just a scientist, she told the brothers. He was a visionary who understood that nature already has the solutions. We just need to help them emerge. The Institute's success had also transformed Ahmad Enterprises. Under Karim's leadership, the company had become a global leader in sustainable agricultural technology, proving that environmental stewardship and business success could go hand in hand. Late one evening, as the facility's lights illuminated the thriving experimental plots, David Reynolds brought them another surprising discovery from their father's records. Ibrahim had been planning this for over 2 decades, he explained, showing them a series of journal entries. He was laying the groundwork for this project before either of you were born. The revelation gave new meaning to their father's favorite saying: the smallest seed, planted with wisdom and nurtured with patience, can grow into a forest that changes the world. As the desert stars emerged overhead, the Ahmad brothers stood together at their father's old observation point, looking out over the transformed landscape. What had begun as a seemingly unfair inheritance had blossomed into something far greater than any of them had imagined. A living legacy that was helping to heal the earth, 1 acre at a time. 2 years after Ibrahim Ahmad's passing, the impact of his vision had exceeded even his most optimistic projections. The Ahmad Institute had become a beacon of hope for arid regions worldwide, demonstrating that sustainable agriculture could not only survive in the desert, but help restore it to vibrant life. On a bright spring morning, the facility grounds were filled with visitors from around the world. The United Nations had organized a global conference on sustainable desert agriculture, and the Ahmad Institute was hosting the keynote event. Tariq, now recognized as a leading expert in sustainable agricultural mathematics, stood at the podium addressing delegates from over 50 countries. What we've learned here isn't just about farming techniques or genetic improvements, he explained. It's about understanding that every ecosystem, no matter how harsh it seems, contains the seeds of its own renewal. Sarah, who had recently published groundbreaking research on adaptive genetics, demonstrated how their enhanced breeding program had evolved. Solomon's descendants were now helping to transform agricultural practices across 3 continents, each generation adapting perfectly to local conditions while maintaining their remarkable beneficial traits. Karim, having successfully transformed Ahmad Enterprises into a model of sustainable business practices, shared how their father's vision had revolutionized corporate thinking. Profit and environmental stewardship aren't opposing forces, he told the assembled business leaders. They're part of the same healthy ecosystem. The Institute's training center was now producing a new generation of agricultural pioneers. Students from around the world came to learn not just the technical aspects of sustainable farming, but the philosophy behind it, the delicate balance between innovation and tradition, progress and preservation. Maria Rodriguez, addressing a group of traditional farmers from drought-stricken regions, showed how her family's farm had become a model of sustainable success. We're not just growing crops, she said, gesturing to her thriving fields. We're growing hope for future generations. Jack Henderson, standing in the middle of what had once been barren desert, led tours of the demonstration plots. See this soil, he would say, scooping up a handful of rich, dark earth. 2 years ago, this was dead dust. Now it's full of life. That's not just science, that's magic. Dr. Hassan's research team had documented unprecedented improvements in soil quality, water retention, and biodiversity across all their implementation sites. The data showed that their methods weren't just sustaining the desert ecosystem, they were helping it evolve into a more resilient and productive state. As the conference reached its conclusion, the Ahmad brothers unveiled their most ambitious initiative yet, the Ibrahim Ahmad Foundation for Global Desert Restoration. Funded by a combination of corporate partnerships and international support, the foundation would help implement their sustainable methods in communities worldwide. The announcement was met with a standing ovation, but the real celebration came later that evening, during a smaller gathering at the original facility. Local farmers, international scientists, and community members came together to share stories of transformation and hope. Solomon, now in his golden years but still majestic, watched the proceedings from his special enclosure. His legacy lived on not just in his descendants, but in the transformed landscape around him, a testament to Ibrahim's belief that nature's wisdom, properly understood and respected, could solve humanity's greatest challenges. Sarah found Tariq near their first experimental plot, now a lush demonstration of desert agriculture's potential. "Your father would be proud," she said softly, taking his hand. "Not just of what you've accomplished, but of who you've become." Karim joined them, looking out over the land that had taught them all so much. "Father always said that true success isn't measured in what we gain," he reflected, "but in what we give back to the world." As the desert sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, the gathered community celebrated not just what had been accomplished, but what was yet to come. The Ahmad Institute had become more than a research facility or a successful business venture. It was a living example of how humanity could work in harmony with nature to create positive change. The brothers' personal reconciliation had grown into something far greater, a model for how innovation and tradition, profit and preservation, science and wisdom could work together to create a better future for all. In the end, Ibrahim Ahmad's greatest legacy wasn't the wealth he had accumulated, or even the revolutionary agricultural methods he had developed. It was the lesson he had taught his sons, and through them the world, that the most valuable inheritance is the opportunity to make a positive difference in the world. As the stars began to appear in the desert sky, the gentle wind carried the promise of renewal across the land, whispering ancient secrets about harmony between human ingenuity and natural wisdom. Secrets that Ibrahim Ahmad had understood, that his sons had helped reveal, and that would continue to transform the world for generations to come.